Throughout history, the power of youth has sparked revolutions, toppled governments, and redefined nations. These are not just tales of rebellion. They are stories of change, fueled by the passion of students who dared to challenge the status quo. Today, we're diving into 10 incidents where student movements changed the course of world politics. From peaceful protests to defiant uprisings, these moments prove that when the youth stand together, history takes note. Let's get started. The May 4th Movement, 1919, China. In 1919, Beijing students took to the streets in what became known as the May 4th Movement. Frustrated by China's weak response to the Treaty of Versailles, which gave Chinese territories to Japan, students sparked a national outcry. This protest marked the rise of Chinese nationalism and laid the foundation for future political movements, including the Chinese Communist Party. The May 4th movement wasn't just about territory, it was about reclaiming national dignity. The 1968 student protests, France. In May 1968, the streets of Paris became a battleground. What began as a university protest against outdated educational policies quickly escalated into a nationwide movement. Students, joined by workers, demanded radical social and political reforms. The protests nearly brought down the French government and led to significant changes in labor laws and educational reforms. The May 68 movement remains a symbol of youth challenging authority. The Soweto Uprising, 1976, South Africa. On June 16, 1976, thousands of black students in Soweto, South Africa, marched against the apartheid regime's policy of enforcing Afrikaans as the medium of instruction. The peaceful protest turned deadly when police opened fire, killing hundreds of students. The Soweto Uprising shocked the world and intensified international opposition to apartheid, eventually contributing to the system's downfall. The Prague Spring, 1968, Czechoslovakia. During the Prague Spring of 1968, Czechoslovakia witnessed a surge of liberal reforms led by students and intellectuals. They demanded more freedom of expression and political participation, challenging Soviet control. Although the movement was crushed by Soviet tanks, the Prague Spring inspired future generations to continue the fight for freedom across Eastern Europe. The Tlatelolco Massacre, 1968, Mexico. In the lead-up to the 1968 Mexico City Olympics, students protested against government repression and demanded democratic reforms. The movement culminated in the tragic Tlatelolco Massacre, where the Mexican government violently suppressed the protests, killing hundreds. The event exposed the harsh realities of Mexico's authoritarian regime and fueled future resistance movements. The Iranian Revolution, 1979, Iran. Students played a pivotal role in the Iranian Revolution of 1979. Disillusioned with the Shah's regime, they mobilized massive protests, demanding social justice and an end to Western influence. Their efforts contributed to the Shah's overthrow and the establishment of the Islamic Republic. The revolution reshaped the Middle East and continues to influence global politics. The Anti-Vietnam War Movement, 1960s-1970s, USA. Across the United States, students became the face of the anti-Vietnam War movement. Through campus protests, sit-ins, and massive demonstrations, they voiced their opposition to the war. The movement played a crucial role in shifting public opinion, leading to the eventual withdrawal of U.S. forces from Vietnam and a reassessment of American foreign policy. The Tiananmen Square protests, 1989, China. In 1989, thousands of Chinese students gathered in Tiananmen Square, demanding democratic reforms and an end to corruption. The protests, which captured global attention, were brutally suppressed by the Chinese government, leading to an unknown number of deaths. Despite the tragic outcome, the Tiananmen Square protests remain a powerful symbol of the struggle for freedom in China. The Velvet Revolution, 1989, Czechoslovakia. The Velvet Revolution of 1989 was a peaceful movement that led to the fall of communism in Czechoslovakia. Students played a key role, organizing demonstrations and strikes that gained widespread support. The movement culminated in the resignation of the communist government and the establishment of a democratic state. The Pinochet protests, 1980s, Chile. During the 1980s, Chilean students became the forefront of resistance against the military dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet. Their protests, often met with violent repression, demanded the return of democracy and human rights. These movements eventually contributed to Pinochet's downfall and the restoration of democracy in Chile. From the streets of Paris to the squares of Beijing, these 10 incidents show that students have always been at the forefront of political change. Their courage and determination remind us that the power to shape the world lies in the hands of the young and passionate. What will the next generation of students achieve? The stories we've shared today are a testament to the power of youth in shaping our world. But the journey doesn't end here. Right now, students around the globe are continuing this legacy of resistance and change. In our next video, we'll dive into recent protests that are shaking the foundations of world politics, from the streets of Sri Lanka to the campuses of Bangladesh. These movements are writing the next chapter in the history of student activism, and their impact is already being felt. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Puzzled Mind vs. for more content that dives deep into the stories that shaped our world. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on the latest stories of student-led movements that are changing the world as we speak. Stay informed, stay inspired, and stay tuned for part 2. Until then, keep questioning, keep learning,